Right. I think that's all good. Gosh, there's so many, just so many things to think about. Yeah. Okay, that should all be good. Hello. I think this is my first time doing this in quite a while. Before I've streamed on LinkedIn, but this is my first time trying different platforms. I it's really odd from my side. I can't really see much, so I'm just gonna keep my fingers crossed that it's all working. This is an experiment for me more than anything, but I've put it in whatever posts I've made before, but this is also just a chance for me to share what I know about formulas, hopefully in a way that will be helpful to people that haven't really used formulas in Notion before or are just generally curious. So yeah, I suppose a brief intro makes sense. I'm Amy. I'm a Notion certified consultant, which means that I've kind of gone through all the tests and qualifications to prove that I know enough about Notion to help businesses. I'm also an ambassador, so a Notion ambassador. So that means that I'm a bit more involved with the Notion community to the point where I can host events or field questions, that kind of thing. So I feel like I'm a pretty good person to be talking about this stuff. And today I'm going to be going through formulas in what I hope to be a very, very simple way. So without further ado, I guess I'll jump in. I've left the chat open. If you have questions, you can just put them in there. But yeah, I suppose I'll get started. So formulas, for the context of this session, are a property in a database. So let's just start with like a inline database so I can show you. Here, the default database, you get your normal properties, but then in here is formula. So this property will take other properties in your database and do something with them and produce a result. And it's just, like any other property. But then if you go into edit here, then suddenly you get this editor. And if you've not really used Notion formulas before, this list is going to be quite intimidating, but I'll try and break it down. Is there any way I can scroll it so it's not at the bottom of the screen? That's a bit more viewable. So within Notion, there are a few different types of what I'm going to call variables, I guess. Actually, I'm going to switch to this to try and explain it a bit better. So, not that way. So, today we're going to be going through a few different types of things you can get in Notion and then how you can tie them all together with formulas. So, first one I'm going to cover is just text. This is quite simple. It's just what you would expect. Like a text thing. So words. Then next we'll look at numbers, which are different from text in the context of formulas. So a number 7. That's pretty good. Pretty good example. Then what was the other one? Booleans. So this might be new to you, this word, if you're not familiar with code and formulas generally. So a Boolean is a type of thing that's just a tick box, basically, true or false. And then the last one we're going to be looking at, and this is very Notion specific, is a property. So that will be within a database, it will be one of these things. So whether that's one of the Notion properties like dates or texts or numbers, that in itself is a separate thing that we're going to be looking at. Let me just build all of those in Notion so we can see. what they look like. So starting with, let's get rid of this as well. So starting with text. For this example, let's just call this animal. And then put in a few examples. Yeah, so these are just, like I explained before, just, we tend to call them strings when we're talking in the context of formulas, but I think Notion calls them just text. So that's what I will try and remember to do that. So these are just text, cat, dog, alpaca. Then let's also add a number type. So, actually that's not going to be very helpful, but for let's pretend alpacas have 6 legs, just to keep it a bit interesting. So these are numbers. They are, even though they look the same in the table, these are different things. Then let's put in a checkbox. I really should have thought about this before. So cats don't like wearing hats, but dogs and alpacas do. Okay. And as you can see, there's only like 2 possible options for a checkbox. It's either it's checked or it's not. So that's the same as a Boolean, essentially. True or false, yes or no, checked or not checked. And then all of these, if we go back to the thing I had before, all of these, so alpacas, number of legs, whether they wear a hat or not, these are all properties within Notion. So in the context of the formula, now in the editor, I will be able to pull in the properties that I've just created here in the table. So name, ignore name, animal, number of legs, and wears hats. You'll be able to pull all of these into the formula. And as you can see, it's got this icon here that kind of tells you what type it is. So this is text, this is number, and this is Boolean. I hope that all makes sense so far. Feel free to, if you do have any questions, if I'm going too quick, if I'm skipping over stuff, please just let me know. Like this is entirely improvised. Like I have points I'm going to try and cover, but it's just me kind of going off of my instincts, I guess. Okay, so what happens when you pull in these properties into a formula? So let's start with the animal and save. It just replicates what is there. Same with if you pulled in number of legs, it will just pull in the number, and it pulls it in as the same type as well. So if this is a number, you're pulling in a number. Let me just go back to animal so you can see that happening here as well. This pulls in the text rather than a number. And then wears hats as well. We'll pull in whether it's false or whether it's true. But then let's say that you, and this is the whole magic of formula, let's say you wanted to do something to the thing that you're pulling in. Let's start with a bit of text formatting. So you pull in animal and it will just pull in that text. But let's say you wanted to, I don't know, add a particular thing before or after it. So this could be if you wanted to add a label, let's say my favorite animal is. In Notion formulas, this will not work because this is, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's kind of like this isn't code. This isn't readable by the machine that's going to output the result into the box. It sees this and it's like, oh, I don't really know what that is. So what you have to do, if you want to put in just text, let's remove this for a second. If you just want to put in text, you have to use these, I'm doing air quotes, I can't remember what they're called, speech marks, I guess. if you put something in speech marks, it's saying to the code, essentially, this is a text. So if I save this, it will be able to read it and it will be able to put it in. So then let's say you wanted to add 2 of these together. You'd kind of do it like you would add 2 numbers together. You would create 2 of these text things, 2 of these strings, and then use the plus to say add. Something interesting is going to happen here is that those 2 things are literally going to be smushed together exactly as they are. If you're thinking about how you would write a sentence and you're adding words together, we tend to put spaces in automatically, but you can't do that with code. Like it will just take what is here, smush it together. So you have to remember to put the space in manually. So if I do that, my favorite animal is dog, and there's a nice space. But then let's say your favorite animal isn't dog. You want to read whatever was put into the table over here. So here, instead of having that text, you can pull in the property of animal because it is also text. My favorite animal is animal, save, and then that will pull in the thing that we added into this table before. So that is how you can manipulate these text objects and kind of stick them together, add things together. One other thing I'm going to try now is, so you see how in animal here it's capitalized, but we don't want it to be capitalized here. This is an example of how you can format these text objects. So when you've got something in Notion formula and you want to do something else to it, there's a couple of ways to do it. Either you can go dot and then do something else to it, or you can kind of say let me try and think how to phrase this. So when you've got something in Notion, like let's say you've got this property and you want to do something to it, you will apply a function to it. Now functions, you can see them on the side here, are it's really hard to like break down what's already in my brain, what I already know, into a way that's a friendlier way of saying it. But these functions are things that you can do to other things in Notion to change them into something else. So you can see here, for example, lower, if you take the function lower and put something into it, it will change every letter in that text into lowercase. So here, if I take lower and I put in dog, then it will return that word where everything is made lowercase. So then, following what we've done before, you can take animal. My favorite animal is lowercase animal, and it will make it into something that's a bit more, a bit more sentence case, I guess is the word, a bit more readable string. So that's how you will take something, a property in Notion, and apply a formula to it. And you see very helpfully in Notion, on the left hand here is like a really good reference for, like, because even if you use formulas often, you forget stuff a lot of the time. So it's helpful to have them right here. Yeah, so that's how you would do that with text. With numbers, I think this is an important thing to cover. So here, I've said that text and numbers are 2 different things because they are treated differently. Like you cannot do certain thing, like there are certain formulas that apply only to text that do not apply to numbers. So if I come back into here and I try to do lower number of legs, like that's not going to do anything. Let's see if I can think of a more. Okay. If I try this, I don't think I've actually tried this before. Oh, okay, it does work, that's good. So there will be some things where you can't mix types. I'm trying to think, this is why I should have prepared a bit better. Let's see. So for example, these ones, you wouldn't be able to add a text to a number in the same way that you would be able to add two numbers here. Oh, hello, Lou. Hello. Good to see you. Yeah, just to, I suppose to summarize, just for my own sanity, where we are. So we've covered the three different types of things or three different types of properties in Notion. And then I'm walking through with formulas how you can manipulate these three. I think for the sake of this stream, like the amount of time I want to give to this, the amount of, like, to try and keep it beginner friendly, I'm just going to stick to being able to take stuff in Notion, make it look good using formulas. Actually, yeah, I completely forgot about that. So one thing in Notion, one question about formulas that I have had is to be able to make a summary. So let's just take a second to create a gallery. Bear with me, this is possibly why I should have prepared something in advance for this. So let's say I wanted to create a gallery with that's a good dog. And then alpaca. That's a good alpaca. And then there we go. And then okay, so in Notion, sometimes you might want to use a gallery to create a summary of a bunch of different things in your table. At the moment, if I wanted to be able to show number of legs and wears hats, it's not very aesthetic. Like, without hovering over, you wouldn't be able to see the number of legs this dog has. And likewise, you wouldn't be able to see, or like you can see wears hats, but it's, I don't know. It could look nicer, is what I'm saying. So let's make that the next goal for the next few minutes, is to be able to make something using formulas that can go at the bottom of this gallery that will look nicer than what we have here. So number of legs, let's start with that. So formula, if we take what we had before, this animal has number of legs, legs. And remember what I said before about including the spaces. So I've put the space here for legs, the space here for has. Save. This animal has 4 legs. Then in the gallery, what I can do is show that instead of that number. So instead of just seeing 4, it's just a nice way to have the bullet point of, it's just a bit more of a readable thing there. Okay, right, let's do something similar for wears hats. So let's just name this one to Lex formula for now. And then in here, let's do another formula for hats. So we take our thing for wears hats. Now, one thing that I haven't covered yet in formulas, but it's super helpful, is what's called Boolean logic. So let me get the whiteboard back up. You have a Boolean, which can either be true or false. And what you can do with that is you can say, logically, if it's true, do one thing. So if it's true, do this. And else, so I guess in this case it's like if it's false, this instead. So this is super helpful for like, so for example, if you wanted to show, in this case, if you wanted to show like a good thing if it's true or a bad thing if it's false, that's what this if else logic is for, if that makes sense. And all of that is off of the true false value of a Boolean. So if we go back to our table, you can see where's hats is like false and true. So that means this value will either be true or false for each of these items in the database. So in Notion formulas, I will scroll down and find it. You use the if function. Like I used if else on my diagram, but here in the thing, it's just saying if else implicitly, if that makes sense. So here, if condition, so that's if where's hats is ticked or not ticked, and then two possible outcomes, if true and if false. So let's try and build something here. So if where's hats, then this will be if it's true. Let's just for now say true. And if it's false, let's say false. So you can see it lines up with if it wears a hat, it's false. Sorry, if it doesn't, it's false. And if it does, it's true. But then let's go a step further to say if wears hats, wears a hat and does not wear a hat. And in the gallery, you would show the hats formula rather than the hats Boolean. So then now you've got kind of like a stats card for each of these animals. You got the dog, has 4 legs and wears a hat. I should have found pictures where they were wearing the hats, that would have made sense. But another thing we can do, so visually, if you just wanted to scan down and see the difference between positive and negative values for if it wears a hat or not, at the moment it's quite plain. But if you could style it, you know, if you could make it green if it's true and red if it's not true, it would make it a bit more visible. Well, not visible, a bit more scannable, that's the word. So let's go back into our hats formula. And here, so another function in Notion that it feels like when it came out, like, you know, not many people spoke about it, but I use it so frequently just because I think it's just really helpful to be able to do this sort of thing, is style. So style will let you style text. It's not really much more complicated than that. So you can say for a particular string, for a particular text, apply different styles to it. And they match the styles that Notion uses for its tags. So if we applied a style value to this string wears a hat, we can say style wears a hat, and then styles. So Alika is green. Let's make it green. So you can see where it's true, it will style that text to green. And then you can do the same to this one as well. And this is where it starts to get a little bit, if you aren't particularly used to formulas, this is maybe where it starts to get a little bit spooky, but as you can see, it's not really. It's just building up on what you already have. You don't have to jump straight in, be able to write a whole bunch of code. It's about starting with something really small and then building it out. Does not wear a hat. red. Yeah, yellow. Like it just adds a little bit of punch to your databases, right? It adds a bit of punch to oh gosh, I keep forgetting words today. To like the different layouts and the different, you see it in templates as well. If you can punch it up a little bit from the default Notion style, like if you could synchronize all your colors, all that kind of thing, just makes it feel a bit more yours. So here, does not wear a hat, wears a hat. Another thing is that you can, and you can see it here, if you add underscore background, then you can also add the background color. So within this formula, you can see in the definition, you can apply multiple styles to a single value. So then if I went green background, whoop, that's the one I was looking for. See, it adds a background to it. And then red. Then in the gallery, it's a bit more scannable. So you can see it's got green, red. That's kind of what we were aiming for. Let's also take a look at this animal has 4 legs. Let's make the number bold. Just for that extra emphasis, make it a bit more scannable. So that's kind of a little bit of an intro into formulas in terms of taking the properties that we have and then changing how they look visually, so that on a like for example on this gallery view, you can start playing around with making summaries that are a bit more readable than what we had before. So if I put those back on, yeah, so if you compared this, it's like having to hover to this. Just a bit more concise, a bit more usable. Okay. What else was it I wanted to cover? Logic, I've covered that. So let's do now, we can take, okay, let's do something with number of legs now. So let's create another new formula. So with number types in Notion, what you can do is you can also perform, like, I don't want to use the word maths, but you can do maths with them, as you can see here. So if you have a number, you can say, like, you can just do number stuff with it. I really need to work on my my words. So say number of legs. So here you've got 4, 4, 6. I'm trying to think what you'd do. Okay, let's say, kind of shoehorned myself in with this example. Let's say that you wanted to buy each animal a pair of shoes. No. I really have hemmed myself in with this example. Okay, let's imagine there's a world where okay, so we are ordering trousers for these animals, and we want, like, we can order trousers that have 4 leg holes in them. Okay, so we want to figure out which animals will be able to wear these trousers. Gosh, I really should have thought about this. But so you've got number of legs, which in this case is 4, and we want to be able to say, if this number is equal to 4, then this animal can wear the trousers. If it's not equal to 4, then it can't. So the logic here, we can use the same one that we used for hats, where we can say if something is true, then return one thing. If it's not true, then return another thing. So to turn this into a true false, we have to first create a statement that can either be true or false. Thank you. I'm doing my best. So an alpaca with 6 legs cannot wear a pair of trousers that has 4 leg holes. Makes sense. So to turn this into a true false statement, you say number of legs here is equal to 4. But then if you're working with logical operations, you have to put 2 equal signs. I'm not entirely sure how to explain that. There is a reason, and you can see here it's in the list of operators you get within Notion formulas. There is a reason. I think it's because the single equals is reserved for other things. So if you put a single equals here, it will confuse the formula essentially. So we put 2 equals to say, no, we're trying to do a Boolean operation. We're trying to get a true false statement out of this. So if we put in number of legs is equal to 4, then we should get true, true, false. Because cat has 4 legs, dog has 4, but alpaca has 6. So going back in here, now that we have our true false statement, we can do what we were doing before with the if. So we can say if number of legs is equal to false, then is equal to 4, then can wear the trousers. Else it's cannot wear the trousers. Okay. So yeah, on that summary view then, you would be able to then bring in this and say, rearrange it, hang on. You can say that even though we have in our table a number value, we can still pull out a true or false thing about that number and then turn it into a readable sentence here. So even though we're going off of the 6th here, we can still end up with true false here. There's a bit of a ham-fisted way of explaining that, but yeah, being able to turn one thing into another thing. So you could use that, for example, if you were looking at, pragmatically, if you were trying to estimate how many hours you'd spent on something and then how many hours you think it would take, then you can create a formula in this view to say, oh, we're over the limit. Actually, yeah, let's build that. So let's create 2 new numbers. Snacks eaten and then snacks allowed. And that should be a number. So you can say cat's allowed to eat, I don't know, 6, dog can eat 10, bucket can eat 12. Oh, other way around. Let's do 10. And then. So let's say we want to figure out which one is like over budget, which one's under budget. Let's also just hide some of the ones we're not using for the time being. And then hide for now. So we can focus on this. Okay, so we can take the overall snacks allowed and the overall snacks eaten to produce again like a logic. So to be able to say, if this thing is true, do one thing. If this thing is false, do another thing. So let's take 2 properties. One is snacks eaten and the other one is, oh, it's going to make me do this first. Okay. snacks allowed. I'll explain this now. So we have our two values for the number of snacks eaten and the number of snacks allowed. And we want to be able to say if they've eaten more than their allocated allowance, then we want to flag that. We want to be able to say, hey, this is something we should be looking at. So let's go again and build our if. There's a lot of if this, then this logic in coding, like in writing formulas. But it's good to get into the pattern of knowing if this statement, then do this, else do this. So if snacks eaten is greater than snacks allowed, so if that's the case, you're really bad. And if it's under, then fine. So you can see dog has eaten too many, and everybody else is fine. But let's say that this one was on the line. It's still fine because within here, this sign means that this number has to be bigger than this number. If you wanted to say if someone hits their limit, so if these two are equal or greater than, then you would put the equals sign in. So then you can see here, this turns to bad because this is now equal to or greater than this. And then from here, what you could do is you could start doing what we were doing before of saying, you could style this so that it's red, and you could style this so that it's green. I forgot the word for green. So just to summarize, that's how you would then take two properties and do something with them to create logic, which then you could show true, false. I hope this is all like making sense. Like you can tell this is very, very improvised, but I feel like just being able to see how this logic gets built up, I think it's helpful if you've never seen formulas before. So just to summarize everything that we've been doing so far, in Notion you can have a few different types of properties. I've explained like the text, I've explained numbers, and I've explained booleans, and they are all properties within Notion. Then using formulas, you can pull these properties into different formulas and do stuff with them. I've mostly at this point covered logic of saying if this, then do this. But over the next, I don't know, however long I'm going to keep going, I'll also explain how you can do different things to them. And if you do have any questions, yeah, just put them in chat and then I can answer them too. Right, let's also say, okay, so here's another example. Let's call this one just for snacks limit. So let's say you wanted to know how many snacks were remaining. You can do that with a formula. So at the moment you'd have to manually kind of do the calculations and say, okay, like this one has so many left, this one's gone over budget, but let's make a formula to do that for us. So again, go down to formula, remaining, then edit. So let's take again the two properties and say snacks allowed. So you start with the budget and then you take away the amount eaten, and this will give you a number. So you can see here that this one's eaten all the available snacks, this one still has some left, and this one's gone way over budget. Then one thing we can do, so let's say in the gallery we wanted a summary of either how many snacks this animal has remaining or if they've gone over their snack allowance. So kind of combining these two. So let's do it off of the Let's do it off of the back of this one. So let's say if snacks allowed minus snacks eaten is greater than 0. So if they have at least one snack available, then has snacks left. Does not have snacks left. Okay. So yeah, this is how many this one has left. Does not have any and does not have any. Cool, that is correct. Then we want to say here, one thing that might be helpful is to be able to say how many snacks are left. So then let's do what we did before and say snacks allowed minus snacks eaten left. Oh, this is a good point to make here. So if I tried to do this, it's as I was explaining before, you cannot put text and numbers together, and Notion thinks that this is a number because it is. It's the number that we used here in this maths. It's exactly the same. So here it's trying to make one big text, but I've put a number in the middle, so it's a little bit confused. But within Notion formulas, you can convert a number to, or you can convert anything to a text. So what I was explaining before of having like text and number, you can switch between them. So here I will need to use a formula to change that snacks allowed minus snacks eaten into text that can then be put into this bit here. So I do that with format. If I can find my cursor, there we go. So this should now work. If I go save, has 3 snacks left, which is correct, but then these two do not have any snacks left. So then, and this is where this is something that I've not used before, like chaining ifs together, but let's learn it together, that's fine. So what you used to be able to do is to just kind of recursively add in if statements. So you could say, oh, if it's true, do this. If it's not true, then here's another if statement and check this one. But then in the new version of Notion formulas, which I'm still learning, like there's just so much in there, I'm still learning it. So I've not used these back-to-back ifs. So let's try it together. So if the first condition and it's true, then do that thing. If the second condition is true, then do this thing. Okay, so let's put that in here. If first condition, do this thing. See, I'm using the commas here I'm using the commas because that's kind of how the formula is distinguishing if it's like this thing or this thing or this thing. So I'm reading the commas in my own formula here. If this, there's a comma, there's a comma. So now I can start the second condition, which will be snacks allowed minus snacks eaten is equal to 0. So I want to do something if there are no snacks left at all. So no snacks remaining. And then I want to do a final thing if like the dog value, if eaten is bigger than allowed, which is that absolutely should not be happening. So no snacks remaining. Then there will be another one, has had way too many snacks. and I broke it. Okay, let's see why. If received unexpected argument, function if so it's because I didn't put the S there. Okay. Okay, there we go. So here has 3 snacks left, which is good because it's allowed. Actually, I'm going to swap this over. Allowed minus eaten, which is a positive number, which is good. Here, allowed minus eaten is 0, so they're fine. It's like on target, I guess. Allowed minus eaten is too big, so has had way too many snacks. Let's try and add the number back into this. So what will happen is if we do as we did before, if we copy this, has had they should has had -2 more snacks than they should, which isn't true, right? They've had 2 more snacks than they should. So then what you can do within this formula here is then has had format. There is a formula in here to, there should be somewhere to absolute. Yeah, so to remove the minus sign from a number. So if it's positive, it will stay positive. If it's negative, it will flip to positive. So that is the ABS formula. And I will do it on the number part rather than the formatted. So I'll do it on snacks allowed minus snacks eaten rather than format brackets, because that format brackets is a text now. So if I did the number on the number operation on it, it wouldn't work. So if I click save, there you go, has had 2 more snacks than they should. Then, of course, you could go into this formula and start formatting it, like make some of them green, some of them red, some of them blue, whatever. But then in the gallery, there you go. Just to complete the puzzle. So you can see with formulas, even though we started today with absolutely nothing, we've gone through and we've been able to build out these little summary cards. And once you've unlocked the idea of being able to add numbers together, add them to different texts, to be able to do Boolean operations to say, oh, do this on one thing, do this on the other thing, it kind of, it snowballs a little bit. But off of the back of all of this, I would suggest just going away, having a go, trying it yourself. You can see as well in here, there's just, well, not this one. Here, there are just so many, gosh, come on. You know what we were looking at before, at the side. There are just so many different formulas you can use. I'm not going to be able to get it up now. But I've not even really scratched this. Well, I have scratched the surface, that was the point. But you can do logic on different property types as well. So you can say, do something with statuses. You can do something with dates. I hadn't covered dates, but maybe one for a future session. Relations and roll-ups I haven't gone into, but you can start pulling information from other databases in Notion and then do formulas on them. So it really can explode, but just being able to do like the basics of formatting and operations and stuff. Yeah, I hope this has kind of showed you how easy it is to get into. And of course, I'm always here. I'm always around if you have any questions. I'll probably do more of these. I think this has been a good just experiment. It's just been a good little test. Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.